But I think this is a great point because you talked at the beginning of going to these summer camps and having a third grader ask you questions about the meaning of the universe. Like everybody can be a philosopher, starting, third grade or earlier.
We can't avoid being philosophical.
But in this case, if philosophy,
now we can.
But if philosophy is just something that's technological, then you need an expert. I have no idea how to build an algorithm of anything. I don't hardly even know what that word means.
I mean, you were reading some of the questions, right? And it's like people, because I'm a philosopher, people think of me as an expert. It's like, I've got all this knowledge now I can give you. I've got this information for you. Right. And what I try to do in my classes is I try to get away from that. Right. Yeah, I might have some information because I've read more, but that's pretty much the only difference. You're probably more intelligent than I am. The thing is this desire we're talking about, this desire for the transcendent good needs to be stoked, and you need to pursue it. You need to commit to that for the rest of your life. And one of my goals in my classes is that students become practitioners of philosophy. They want to do it themselves. I don't have to tell them to read this, or they should just want to read whatever, whether it's War and Peace, right? Whether it's the poetry of Wordsworth, I don't really care, right? As long as they're pursuing that deepest desire and they're not giving in to this sort of technopolistic, materialistic, I think really atheistic mentality.
What I meant when I said we no longer need to philosophize is that we have YouTube. Right. Because I remember as a kid, before the time of the internet, my mates and I, after a few warm beers that we stole from our father's shed, would lay out on a quiet one-way, a dead-end road and look up at this. This is actually something we did. This is something humans did. I presume some of them still do. Yeah. We would lay on the ground and look up at the stars and have what we called glue conversations, which stood for God, life, the universe, and everything. Wonderful. And my friends and I didn't go to church, and we didn't ascribe to a particular religion, but we asked questions. My point now in saying we no longer need to do that is I wonder how that would go today. Okay, so we're laying on the road and we want to know, like, does God exist? Like, is there an explanation that is not itself explained? Yeah. Well, let's look it up. Yeah. And now we're down a YouTube rabbit hole where we don't even have to do the thinking because someone else does the thinking for us. No, that happens in those profound areas of God's existence and the meaning of life. It also happens in trivial areas like who won the last Olympics? And we no longer have the joy of thinking about it together. Right. It's like, well, hang on, let me look it up. Yep. Here's the information. And we've just short-circuited the lovely conversation we could have had.
I agree. And I think there's something really profound in what you said is that I feel like more and more today, people can't think for themselves. The thoughts that occur to people, I mean, myself I would include sometimes, they're not my thoughts. Right? Think of where the words that express your thoughts come from. That's what your thought is. It's the expression of this sort of function going on, thinking, right? So you can't have a thought without having it expressed, right?
Terms and concepts.
Yeah, terms and concepts. So they come in, well, who gave you those terms and concepts? Like, here's an example is you're having a conversation and somebody says, and they say, well, what's wrong with two people that love each other? I mean, that isn't a phrase that person made up. That's a cliche.
Love is love.
Yeah, love is love. Or somebody, I was recently having a conversation with somebody, they were talking about one of their relatives or something's daughter wants to get a sex change. And she said, well, I'm a boy trapped in a girl's body. I mean, what does she mean by boy in that sentence? Right? What does she mean by girl in that sentence? What I'm saying is that sentence is nonsense. It's a string of words that's put together to accomplish something. It's like my children. They say certain phrases and words, not because they're denoting reality or expressing assertions of reality, but because they want me to do something, right? So people say, well, what's wrong with two people to love each other? They're not asserting something about the nature of love. They're not asserting a truth. What they're saying is stop conversing. They're trying to get you to stop. It's a conversation stopping move. And so what I'm saying is the strings of words that we have that occur in our minds come from somewhere else, and then we parrot it. So we're not actually thinking. Somebody else is thinking, right? That's crazy. And who's thinking is whoever's in control of where those phrases come from, which in our society is largely the internet, right? And this sort of these social media phrases are coming all over the place, and we're just repeating those. Yeah. So our discourse, right, is broken down and in a certain way prevents individual people actually thinking their own thoughts. Right? Haven't you met these people where they say phrases that you're not used to hearing? And they're like, they're the thinkers. They're the original people. They say things in a way. Mark Barnes is a great example. He says things in ways, Andrew Jones, he says things in a way that like people don't use those phrases. It's the first time you saw those words put together. You're like, oh, that guy's thinking.
Yeah.
It's not the way somebody else put them together. So if we can, one test of truth is synonymy, right? Can you say this sentence in completely different words?
Yes.
If you can't, then you probably don't know what truth you're asserting. That's the test, right? And it's so simple. It's just language, right? So we began earlier before we got on the air with like that prayer about the liberal sciences. And to me, when I teach philosophy, do you want to see it?
Oh, do you want to read it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I often begin class with this prayer. And I love this prayer. It says, "Hear our prayers, O Lord Jesu, the everlasting wisdom of the Father, who givest unto us in the days of our youth aptness to learn. Add, we pray thee, the furtherance of thy grace, so to learn knowledge and the liberal sciences, that by their help we may attain to the fuller knowing of thee, whom to know is the height of blessedness, and by the example of thy boyhood may duly increase in age, wisdom, and favor with God and man." So the idea of the liberal sciences is, right, the trivium and the quadrivium. So I teach at Franciscan, and we are a liberal arts university, which means we have a set of core classes to teach the liberal arts. Well, the liberal arts traditionally were the trivium and the quadrivium. It doesn't matter exactly what those things are, but it is instructive to look. So if we say the trivium, that would be grammar, logic or dialectic, and rhetoric. And so grammar is about expressing thoughts, right? Dialectic is about having a conversation to pursue the truth. Rhetoric is, once you've got truths, how to express them to certain audiences so that they can receive them. What's the theme there? Truth, accuracy, language. It's all about language. Like literally a good education is somebody who knows how to use words really well. They have a good vocabulary. They can express things clearly, right? They can modify the way they say in response to some audience. And our way of using words is being broken down. That's my point. Language itself is being broken down. And then the logical functions and logical words have a negative connotation, right? Like think of like logic and argument. Argument means quarrel. Argument doesn't mean trying to pursue a truth by premises that lead by rules that are absolutely reliable, right? To more truth. Like argument should be exciting because now we go from one truth to more truth. And so those words that are about truth are denigrated, right? Or not appreciated anymore. Right? There's a stigma against that. There's an anti-rational stigma. So my point is that to look at the nature of words and language to me cannot be overestimated.
If you like that clip, be sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.